Back in Illinois, lawmakers are moving to limit where federal immigration detention centers can operate. A House committee advanced a bill that would ban those facilities from being within 1,500 feet of homes, schools, daycares, parks, forest preserves, cemeteries, or places of worship. This is sponsored by House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, whose district includes Broadview. That was where an ICE facility became a flashpoint during last year's Midway Blitz enforcement campaign. The bill would not shut down the existing Broadview site. Supporters say it's about public safety and human dignity, while opponents question whether the state can legally restrict federal operations. Broadview's mayor told lawmakers some neighbors live about 600 feet from that facility and estimates the community has lost more than $700,000 from strained public safety and disrupted local business. Illinois already bans private immigration detention centers and local jail contracts with ICE.